Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today for this clean water webinar that we're hosting with Lisa Wu and Alicia Vasto with Iowa Environmental Council and Potomac Riverkeeper Network. Just as people are shuffling in here in the first couple minutes, I've got a couple polls just to get a feel for who's in the audience with us today and where you're from. So first question will be, what region of the country are you from? I see the votes are coming in pretty quickly. We've got about 80% of the audience has voted at this point. All right, looks like it's starting to slow down. So just going top to bottom, we've got 12% of our audience from the Northeast, 42% coming from the Mid-Atlantic region, 14% from the Southeast, 28% of us are from the Midwest, and 5% said you were from the West. And apologies, don't take it personally if your region isn't in there. They only let me put 5 options, so you can put something in the questions box if you're from somewhere that's not listed. I'd be interested in learning who we've got out there. So it looks like most of our people are from the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest, and then a few scattered from the others. I've got one more for you while we still get some people trickling in. So this one is just kind of to get a feel for people's levels of experience and knowledge with water quality issues. So from top to bottom, kind of going from less experienced to more experienced. All right, looks like about 80% of us have voted at this point. So we got 8% on the top options that say you're pretty new to this. Welcome, and I hope you guys take something valuable away. 10% say you don't have any field or professional experience, but you know the basics. 27% selected the middle option with some prior education, training, or experience. It's great to see 27% of you said that you're a trained SOS monitor with the Isaac Walton League. 35% answered the bottom option, saying you're a professional in the water quality field. So it looks like the bulk of our people are from the bottom 3 options and a few from the top 2. Thanks for participating in that, folks. Looks like the bulk of our audience is probably here at this point, and we're past the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with a few housekeeping items. First of all, this webinar is going to be recorded. If you're interested in watching the video of this recording, it'll be posted to our Isaac Walton League YouTube channel, and you should receive an automatic follow-up email with that link in a day or two when that's posted. So just be patient, wait for that email to come in. If you want to watch again or share with anyone else, it'll be coming right to you. Also, if you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, we don't have a chat function for you to talk with other audience members, but we do have a questions panel on the GoToWebinar panel. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar for either of our presenters or for me, you can type it in that questions box, and I will be in the background kind of moderating while Lisa and Alicia do their presentations, and we'll do one big Q&A session after both presentations are finished. So just let those questions roll in throughout the presentations, and I'll be watching them and keeping track so that we can bring them up at the end. And without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. So I can introduce myself. I'm Zach Moss, the Midwest SOS, which is Save Our Streams coordinator for the Isaac Walton League of America's National Office. I'm coming to you from my home office in Urbandale, Iowa. We've also got Lisa Wu with the Potomac Riverkeeper Network and Alicia Vasto with Iowa Environmental Council, and they have joined us today to talk about some bacteria pollution topics, bacteria monitoring, sources and solutions for bacteria pollution. And these guys have a lot to offer, and I'm interested in learning more about both you guys' presentations. So thanks to both of you guys for joining today. Thanks for your time, and everyone in the audience too. Thank you for your time, and hope you guys are able to take something away today. So without further ado, it's been 5 minutes. I'm going to pass it off to Alicia to start your presentation. And then I'm going to disappear. I'm going to turn off my webcam and microphone, but I'll be in the background again, moderating questions. Okay, Alicia, it says you're the presenter and should have the option to share your screen.
All right. Let's see.
That's good.
Which one am I showing? Am I showing the right one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Alicia Vasto. I'm the Water Program Associate Director at the Iowa Environmental Council. We're based out of Des Moines, but we work statewide. And so I'm going to talk to you today about Iowa's water quality issues and Iowa lakes. So just to briefly go over what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give a brief introduction to IEC, our water crisis, Iowa's lakes and beaches, the beach monitoring that's being done here in the state, and then some solutions as we see them. So the Iowa Environmental Council is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're a nonpartisan land policy organization focused on science-based policy solutions to our environmental issues. So we have an energy and climate program and a clean water and land stewardship program. And so obviously I'm part of the Clean Water and Land Stewardship Program. And through that, we have a project called Iowa Water Watch, which we started a few years ago to really track what's going on with Iowa's lakes and beaches during the summer recreation season and try to show more of a light on the impact to recreation and tourism in our state of water quality. So I'm briefly going to talk about Iowa's water crisis for those of you who may not be familiar with what's going on here in Iowa. We have water quality issues that we are struggling to address. So more than half of Iowa's waters are impaired. The primary reasons for impairment are biological impairments, turbidity, E. coli, and algae. We have frequent toxic algae blooms and bacteria advisories on our public beaches. Our drinking water is threatened by these sources of contamination as well. And we contribute a large amount of nutrient pollution to the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. So, and all of this is because in Iowa, we have a heavy agricultural industry that has been elevated above the rights and needs of other Iowans. And so we have this imbalance of interest that has created these water quality issues. So one of the main sources of our issues are the proliferation of concentrated animal feeding operations. So you can see this graph from the Environmental Working Group showing just how much livestock has exploded across the state of Iowa. And so this is primarily swine, hog production that is taking over our state. So in 1990, we had 789 large CAFOs, and now we have more than 4,000. And this is just large feeding operations. We also have a lot of operations with fewer than the 1,000 animal units that are not being tracked in this way. So let's see if this goes. This should be a GIF. There it goes. So kind of showing the expansion of CAFOs across our state. So we have about 24 million hogs in our state at any time, and they produce about 68 billion pounds of manure, which is 68 times the amount of waste that's being produced by our 3.1 million Iowa residents. So the waste from these CAFOs is being applied to the lands, the farmlands, as fertilizer, and there's just a lot of it. So you can see that Iowa has more than twice as many as the next state in terms of CAFO operations. So this is really a serious issue that we're facing here. A researcher from the University of Iowa, Chris Jones, did an analysis of the manure that's being created in Iowa and our watersheds, and he put this in equivalents of human populations. So if the amount of waste that was being produced by livestock was being produced by humans, these are the populations that we would see in our various watersheds across the state. So obviously, you know, the waste that is being produced by livestock is being applied without treatment like you would treat human waste. So this is obviously a huge source of bacteria contamination and nutrient contamination in our waters. So thinking about Iowa's lakes and beaches, believe it or not, we do have beaches in the state of Iowa. We're not, you know, super well known for them or for our lakes, but they are a really big asset to our state. We have 34 natural lakes and many more man-made lakes and reservoirs. And then our public beaches, not many of them are monitored, but we do have a pretty robust monitoring program through the Iowa DNR that I'll talk about in a little bit. So like I said, Iowa's not super well known for our lakes and beaches, but they do have an economic impact in our state. The lake tourism brings in $1 billion to Iowa's economy annually and supports more than 12,000 jobs. 60% of Iowans visit a lake at least once per year, and on average, Iowa residents visit a lake 8 times annually. So, of course, these are just the kind of economic values of lakes, but they also provide wildlife habitat, recreation opportunities, which have quality of life and health benefits, and they can also be sources of drinking water. So, this data is from the Lakes Valuation Project at the Center for Agricultural and Rural Development at Iowa State University. So this is, you know, showing that even though it's not a huge sector of our economy, it does have an impact. And even really small rural communities that have a local lake that brings in $2 to $3 million a year, that can be really important source of income for those communities. So the beach monitoring in the state is primarily done by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Every year during the summer recreation season, from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend, they monitor 39 state park beaches for E. coli and microcystin, and they have that data available publicly. The Army Corps of Engineers, the Rock Island District manages our big reservoirs in the state. Well, 3 of the 4, they manage Sailorville, Coralville, and Red Rock lakes. And so they monitor those beaches on those lakes according to the same procedures as the Iowa DNR. And then there is the Kansas City district that also manages Lake Rathbun, which is a reservoir, but they only monitor on holiday weekends. So what is being monitored? One of the main things being monitored is E. coli. So E. coli is a fecal coliform bacteria. So it indicates that there is fecal matter in the water. And E. coli is used as an indicator bacteria. So it can indicate that there are other pathogens that are potentially harmful in the water that could cause illness. E. coli itself, some strains of it can cause illness and symptoms, but one of the bigger concerns is the other pathogens that could be in the water as well. So like I kind of mentioned at the top, one of our biggest sources of E. coli in our state is manure, either as coming from spills or running off of our farmlands when there's excess amounts of it. Or big rains or things like that. There's also, leakages from septic systems and sewage treatment plants, and also wildlife, primarily geese that are loafing on the beach can be a source of E. coli, also pets, and then children with leaky diapers. So there are a few different parameters under which swim advisories are issued on our beaches. So there's a single sample threshold, and then they also do a 5-week geometric mean for more long-term contamination that they'll have advisories issued for that. So with the Iowa Water Watch program, we've been tracking the number of advisories on state park beaches since 2014. So this is the number of advisories issued for those 39 monitored beaches every summer. So you can see that this problem is not going away. It's pretty consistent. And some of our beaches have more issues than others. So this graph is showing some of the public beaches that are monitored, just the ones that had 20 or more advisories during the 2014 to 2020 timeframe. So you can see all the lakes on our website. We have a graph that shows all of them. But definitely some of these lakes have more chronic issues than others, Backbone and Beeds Lake in particular, and the McIntosh Woods Beach at Cedar Lake. So this is just an example that I pulled of Beeds Lake since it has chronic issues. I just threw together this map showing the green dots are CAFOs, and the red circle is a 5-mile radius around Beeds Lake. So there are 37 active animal feeding operations in this 5-mile radius of Beeds Lake. And a quick add up of the livestock that's in this area. There are 98,000 head of hogs in that area, producing 43 million gallons of manure each year. There's also 2,000 head of cattle and 75,000 chickens. So this is kind of, typical for what you see in Iowa. A lot of farmland and a lot of animal operations around our recreational areas. So the other main thing of concern and thing that's being monitored at our beaches are microsystems. So microsystems are cyanotoxins that are produced by cyanobacteria. So a large growth of cyanobacteria is referred to as a harmful algae bloom. And that occurs when there's excess nitrogen and phosphorus in the water. So the microsystems that are produced are really harmful to human health, and they can also indicate the presence of other cyanotoxins like cylindrospermopsins. So the health impacts can be pretty severe. If you come into contact with microcystin, you can have a dermal reaction, but if you inhale it, like if you're water skiing or a boat goes by or something and there's microcystins in the water droplets, you can inhale it and have a reaction from that. Or if you ingest it, you can have flu-like symptoms, and long-term exposure can lead to liver damage. So in the state of Iowa, microcystin advisories are issued at our public beaches when microcystin exceeds 8 micrograms per liter. And that was a threshold that was adopted last year in 2020. The EPA came out with a new recommendation. So previously it had been 20 micrograms per liter was the advisory threshold. So this new threshold is a lot more protective. And these are some of the impacts. These are some headlines from across the country, but one of the things that is a major concern is pets coming into contact with microcystins. Dogs that are playing in the water, they will drink the water, they will lick it off of their fur, and a smaller dose of microcystin can cause serious illness or even death. So this was kind of a spate of dog deaths across the country in 2019 because of microcystins. So this is a serious problem, and we find that when people learn about this, that this can really impact their pets or hurt their dogs. That's something that really catches people's attention. So we want to let people know about that. So again, we've been tracking the microcystin advisories in our state. This data goes back to 2006. So we have seen an increasing trend in the number of advisories that have been issued. So again, the 8 micrograms per liter threshold was started in 2020. So prior to that, it was 20 micrograms per liter. So if we had used a more protective threshold in previous years, we would have seen a lot more microcystin advisories over the last couple decades here. And again, we see more of these chronic issues in different lakes. Green Valley Lake has especially bad algae blooms consistently. So again, these are just lakes that have had the most advisories. These are ones with 5 or more advisories during that time period. And of course, all of this impacts the economies around these lakes. So that same study that I mentioned before, the Lakes Valuation Project, has measured people's perceptions of lakes and water quality, and they found that water quality is by far the most important factor for visitors choosing a lake for recreation, more so than the proximity of the lake or the facilities at the park. And safety and water clarity are most important. So they did a study a few years ago that found that Iowans would pay $30 million more per year on recreation if water quality was improved in Iowa. So really quick, I'll just run through some solutions and actions. So really the most important thing for us here in Iowa are policy solutions. We need to be regulating nutrients, nutrient application, including manure and commercial fertilizers. We need better regulation of CAFO siting, so they're not so concentrated in certain areas, and so that we're protecting sensitive landscapes, drinking source waters, and outstanding Iowa waters. And we also have a trust fund that the voters voted into existence in 2010, but has been sitting empty for over a decade now because the legislature hasn't funded it. So we really need to get that funded to get some money for natural resources in the state. These are more geared towards people who live in Iowa. So if you're in Iowa, we really encourage you to be talking about this issue. You can write about this issue as something that you care about and really draw attention to it. So we help people write letters to the editor on this subject. And then you can also get involved with a watershed management authority if you live in one of these watersheds with a WMA to help protect your local lake. So that's what I have. So thank you all again for letting me present today, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great stuff. We got a few questions that came in during your presentation that we can come back to once Lisa's finished. Just going to make her the presenter real quick. And folks, if you have any questions that Alicia didn't cover, you can keep submitting those, and we'll come back to those at the end. That looks good, Lisa.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Lisa Wu, and I'm the lab manager for the Potomac Riverkeepers Network Water Quality Monitoring Program. And that means I work aboard a boat here. I'm anchored at the moment in Oxon Hill, Maryland, at the National Harbor. So I'll tell you a little bit about that when we get a little bit further into this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Potomac watershed for those of you who are not here, and some of you who are in our area. A lot of people are quite surprised to find this is a huge region that our watershed covers. We're talking 14,700 square miles. It's the headwaters to the Chesapeake Bay. It is also the second largest river flowing into the Chesapeake, and you can see are bordered by West Virginia. We have streams in part of our watershed in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia. So it's a huge area that we oversee. The Potomac River is the drinking water for like 6 million people as well, so it's very important. So I'm going to entice you initially with some pictures if you haven't been on the Potomac River or don't envision it this way. A lot of people don't. They think of it as the river running through our nation's capital, which is certainly true, but we have mountainous regions as well as the tidewater. So here we are with a great picture of the Upper Potomac. And we have several forks and branches. Our Shenandoah River, of course, is a major tributary. This is an area, Harper's Ferry, very historic, which is the confluence of the Shenandoah and the Potomac River. I think Thomas Jefferson once said that this view was worth a trip across the Atlantic, and I certainly agree with him because I was paddling there yesterday, and even in the rain, it was a beautiful view. Here we have some rapids, and these are just right outside of our nation's capital. So we also have paddlers. We like to take people out on the river to enjoy the water as well as to do some work on it. And we also have Mallors Bay. This is Mattawoman Creek. Let's see if I skip. Mallors Bay, I'll go back. So this is a Piscataway Indian tribe that is along here that we go paddling with. So we have really from the mountains to the tidal area. This is the one I jumped over, which is Mallors Bay. This is a new national marine sanctuary, which has the ghost fleet of the World War I sunken ships that are in there, which are very interesting to paddle over. And we do paddles there, which have interesting history and, of course, ecological features as they now have become sort of a reef. And then we have, as I said, our tidal Potomac. This is off of St. Mary's River. We have lots of interest in fishing along the Potomac, so we have some great success stories about shad populations, which we've been able to bring back by building fish ladders, harvesting the roe and restocking the fish in hatcheries and nurseries, which has been a great program that has happened. So we have a smallmouth bass is also a very popular fishing sport, and but of course the populations have been declining, and so we're bringing in fishing guides, scientists with information to identify the causes and solutions of that decline. And if you didn't know, the Potomac River also has dolphins. So there's a scientist, Dr. Janet Mann, who is at Georgetown University, and she has been studying these dolphins since about 2015. And they like to be in the tidal Potomac in the warmer weather, and they're reproducing, and they're sensitive to toxins, which makes them important to us. Lots of bird life. This is Quantico Creek. This is a place where a power plant at Possum Point, where we've obtained a cleanup plan for the legacy coal ash that has been a problem along the Potomac. And of course, mussels used to be very prevalent in the Potomac, and we've started a restoration program to bring them back. So they certainly aid in the natural filtration process. So forgive all the words on this, but this is just a list of some of the cities, if you've been to them, that are along our Potomac, are important ones in our watershed address. And like Alicia was going over the issues with the rural, we also have agricultural issues. So we have urban issues, we have the agricultural, we have the forest industry, and we also have the water interest for fishing and crabbing and oysters, and it's a very important resource. So just to let you know, all of those are land use issues that come into play with the Potomac. So a lot of our challenges are the fact that we have the pollutants that come from these different industries. We have emerging contaminants. We have climate change impacts, and all of these challenges we're having, of course, to deal with. So there are a number of things that deal with the bacteria, which brings us to this topic of your issue today. And of course, the Riverkeepers, if you're not familiar, their basic mission is to protect the public's right to clean water in rivers and streams. We stop pollution, promote safe drinking water, and protect healthy river habitats for the public to enjoy. The Riverkeepers were formed in 2000 here in the DC areas, the Potomac Riverkeepers. It's part of the Water Alliance, which is a global clean water network. And PRKN, our Potomac Riverkeeper Network, is the only nonprofit in the region that is working to effectively stop pollution in the Potomac, the Shenandoah rivers through a combination of assessment, advocacy, enforcement, and also community engagement. And we have 3 Riverkeepers. We could have a lot more. We have about 4,000 supporters and about 1,200 members. So the Riverkeepers are really the eyes and ears of our river. They are the ones that you go to help you identify what might be causing that smell in the stream. They help to stop the pollution, and they also develop the cases so that we can actually advocate for more protective laws. And we've become, really have had a very enjoyable time, I can say, because this is part of what I do, is using community science to help gather the data and identify problems and solutions. Okay, so here we are, just a couple of other pictures going out into the Shenandoah. Of course, the Shenandoah has issues with the agricultural runoff, with the same kinds of things like algal blooms. And we have the cattle that are, drinking and bathing in the streams up there, which cause the issues with the bacteria. We've investigated the toxic coal ash, which is another issue, and this is another really good success story. This is a specialty granules facility in the Upper Potomac, and we were able to work with our legal counsel to negotiate with the company to really build a state-of-the-art filtration system to treat the waste from ash. It's an asphalt shingle manufacturing plant, and the runoff from it was really harming the trout downstream. So in organizing our communities, we've had a lot of success, and it really brings in the public's interest when they have a voice in creating the solution to some of these problems. This is about fracking. And we have a great pro bono group that works with us to help us litigate against these polluters in our region. And of course, promoting, we have lots of Riverpaloozas that we have each year for beginners. You don't need to be a whitewater expert, I can attest to that. But these are great activities every summer to get people out. So of course, we're talking a river that flows through our nation's capital cannot be without politics. And even in 1922, just having your bathing suit, it's being checked there by the authorities to make sure it wasn't too brief. But we still have our issues today. And here's our nation's, in our nation's capital, the river is illegal to be, you cannot swim in it. Part of this is that we are old, historic, we have old pipes, we have different kinds of sanitary sewers. After so many years and growths in population, changes to the chemistry in the ground, these are failing, they're cracking, they're leaking. And some of the sewers underlie the streams, and we have a blue water Blue Plains wastewater treatment plant, which is what we depend upon. But we also have a combined sewer system in which stormwater and wastewater basically flow into the same pipes to the Blue Water Plains to be treated. So raw sewage, and as Alicia was going over, this is where you will pick up a lot of your E. coli problems, can enter the stream in several different ways. So because of the older pipes, these are some pictures along our testing areas where we are actually collecting some of our samples now, but these septic systems will fail, and we have less urban areas where this will flow downstream. After it seeps into the surface, it will flow downstream. So we also have those rural issues, I guess you could say, with from our farmlands. And these combined sewer overflow systems, when it rains or snows, this is going to be too much for these pipes to handle. We have lots of these signs that are around our area, but it's conveyed through these pipes to these outfalls, and it flows directly into the streams and the rivers. And what we have discovered is that for rainfalls that are less than an inch, the effects on the water quality can usually will dissipate in about 24 hours, but not always. And for larger rainfalls, the effects can last up to 3 days. So we have those kinds of warnings around that we have to pay attention to. And this is a picture of part of the DC program is to build these new containers that can actually take care of some of this overflow until it can go to the treatment plant. And that's they've created these very modern new tunnels, which are great. They've already completed one now. And that also includes installing things like rain barrels and gardens and green roofs and having a green infrastructure that people are interested in working with too. So in monitoring the bacteria, which is what I'm really working on, Alicia kind of gave you a very good background on that. But basically what we're looking for is in our DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, what in our watershed, is it safe? Is it safe for you to go into the water? So we actually will do collecting with our volunteers throughout what we call the recreational season, which would be May to September. And the results are posted to Swim Guide each week, which look like the same icon that Alicia was also showing. So this fits into what we call our Swimmable Potomac campaign, which we didn't launch actually until 2019. So the Riverkeepers have been around since 2000, but the 2019 is when they started this campaign. We started out not with 18 sites, but with about, I don't know, about maybe half a dozen sites initially, just a couple of years ago, and now we are in a few weeks going to be adding 3 more sites to this, so it's growing, and we're adding sites both up and down river. And there's a weekly reporting to the Swim Guide, and also just showing you that's you're looking at my lab there, which is a great view whenever you're out there. Some people say it looks like I work in Funland, but my boat is right down there underneath of the tent and near the Ferris wheel and the dippy docks. What could be better? The boat was donated to the Potomac Riverkeepers for us to use. It's a 42-foot dead rise Chesapeake workboat, and it's just great. So we customized it, built it into a lab, and it's great to work aboard. I've given you a little of this information, but this is where our monitors will bring their samples each week. They will be analyzed aboard the Sea Dog, and the data is uploaded on Thursday so that people have it before the weekend. Just a little picture that shows what's involved in a kit, the kinds of what monitoring involves is temperature and pH, bacterial collecting. We also check on turbidity. In some of the sites, I'm doing a salinity test because we're having to deal with brackish water. In some of our further south sites in Port Tobacco. We've had to write a manual to go along with this, and this is constantly being updated. It's really a living document here. This is a picture of a group of people with in-person training. We have an entire online ability to be trained as well due to COVID, and it has worked out very successfully. So, as I said, the people will be out in the field. All the sites were chosen based on specific locations. Either they were a problem or they had been submitted by others that there was an issue with a particular area, perhaps, or maybe a place that a lot of people recreate, a marina area, something where people are coming into contact with the water. So that's what kind of determined what sites we use. And so each of the volunteers goes to a very specific site, GPS coordinates, to make sure that everyone's in the same place each week, and we can be consistent with our data. So I'm aboard the Sea Dog there with our sample, and my lab partner is doing that right now as I'm talking to you. That's Kent Barton there, and one of our volunteers on the end of a pier. And this is the kind of data sheet that I will get from them, which our members will fill out at the top, and then we are filling in the observations that we make down below. We also do a recreational use survey, which tells us, how people are observing others coming into contact with the water. If it's, dogs jumping in for frisbees, or somebody on a jet ski, or maybe they're rowers for the university, but we keep track of who we see out on the water each time. The system that we're using must be similar to what a lot of others are using as well, but it's the IDEX Quantitray system, which really allows us to do a very quick sample where we can take 100 milliliters of the sample water, we can incubate it for 24 hours, and we can get the results very quickly. Based on an enzyme substrate reaction, the E. coli will be identified by using a black light, which will identify the E. coliform separate from the total coliform bacteria that we have. And then one of the things that we do is we like to take our data, we want to make it usable for everybody, so we upload it to the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative, and this is part of the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. And this is data that anyone can have access to. You can use it for research, you can use it for other reports, but this helps to track and analyze trends that are affecting the Potomac and the Chesapeake. So we want to know what's happening this weekend, but we also want to know, well, how can I make a difference? What will make a difference in the future with this? Is there one place that consistently fails? How can we make that better? What's the problem with that particular area? So this is the Swim Guide app that we are using to inform our public, and we have found this to be very successful. This is a free app that anyone can download. So if you want to go to Ocean City tomorrow, or you want to go to Maui or anywhere else in the world, they have beaches all over the place, and you can see what the water quality is going to be like. This is just a sample of what it might look like when you pull this up, and it will tell, this is what we're interested in, how swimmable and fishable is the water at this point in time. We also do a geometric mean for some of our samples. We don't do it on all of them. The thing is, we're working with 3 different jurisdictions. We've got Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and they have different numbers, but we're all analyzing the data basically the same way. But sometimes a geometric mean is used, sometimes it's just a single sample. So I think the good thing is that the water is getting cleaner, and we can focus and use science. This is one of our takeaways, is that we're using science to find the solutions. And we have to sometimes take on tough fights, but we've been lucky in usually winning them. So the biggest opportunity, one of the main things we have learned, is really making a difference at the watershed level. So how you can get involved, and this is for people really anywhere, but check out Swim Guide. This is a great place for you to also, you can upload pictures. We found that we were having 30,000 people were clicking on this, and it was amazing. You can add, you know, photos, you can put advertisements into it if you wanted to, let people know if you're having a cleanup as an example. But this is a great resource for the public, and they're up in Canada. The Swim, Drink, Fish is a charitable organization. They created this as one of their projects, and I think it's really works very well. And their whole idea is, if people are going to protect what they love, and what better way to get them to love something, to introduce them to it, let them interact with it safely. You can also report pollution to us. You can join us in a Riverpalooza paddle. You can be from out of state and do that too. And you can, of course, become a member. So in moving forward, we are always looking for volunteers. People can sponsor sites, you can donate to us, and litigating against polluters is what we do. So spreading the word, letting people know about Potomac Riverkeepers, or any of the Riverkeepers in your own area would be acting similarly. And I think, is that it? I think I have one more slide, but it's not showing up.
Looks like yeah, that was your email address. I can drop that.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, it was Lisa at prknetwork.org. I'll put that in the chat right now.
Sorry about that.
All right, well, Alicia, if you want to turn your webcam back on, we can make ourselves available for some Q&A real quick. We've got about 12 minutes left in the hour, which is awesome. So we've got quite a few questions coming in. And I know a lot of people were probably waiting for Lisa to finish her presentation before submitting the questions. So you guys can go ahead and do that now. We've already got a few coming in for Lisa. But I will go back to some questions that came in for you, Alicia, towards the beginning. So somebody is asking if Iowa has done any DNA analysis of the E. coli to determine sources, so that you can distinguish between bovine, swine, avian, human, etc. sources.
Yeah, I know that has been done in certain places, like for certain lakes. The one that's most familiar to me is the analysis that they did on Lake Darling in southeast Iowa, but that was back in like 2003. So I know the technology has really improved since then. I think that they are also doing that in the Cedar River, in the portion that's in Minnesota, that Isaac Waldmeek is doing that work to analyze the sources of the E. coli. So I think that that's something that, yeah, like I said, we've seen here and there, but knowing how expensive it is, and knowing that it really has to be from people that are living nearby to kind of get that going, or an academic researcher might be doing that, but the state does not do that kind of analysis. So that would be really good information to have.
Yeah, I can also add on I was just in a meeting last week with some people up in Story County, and they mentioned that there were a couple of professors with Iowa State University that are trying to undertake a project to figure out a cheaper and easier way to do that. So maybe if they're able to find some new technology that can be a bit more widely available.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it would. I've got another one for you, Alicia. Somebody asked, how effective has it been to get folks interested in protecting Iowa water in the state legislature or the county level or township? And are there specific strategies in this area that have been effective?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of the question?
They were asking how effective it's been getting people interested in protecting water at the different levels.
I think, yeah, it's a tough question. I think it's very hard moving people to understand or accept that we need regulation to solve this problem. I think there's such a huge focus and deference paid to the agricultural industry in Iowa that it's just totally outweighed by any other interests and people's concerns. And so I think, like I mentioned, the Natural Resources Trust Fund was adopted in 2010. And so Iowa voters voted for that. Over 60% have voted to create that trust fund, but it hasn't been funded by the legislature. So you can see that there is, among the public, there's a desire to improve our water quality, enhance our natural resources, but our state leaders don't have the political will or courage to actually do anything about it, to actually enact a sales tax that will fund the trust or take more aggressive steps in policy to improving our waters. So I think that it has been, I wouldn't say it has been successful in recent years that we've been able to get things accomplished at the state level.
Yeah, I'd say some of the success stories I've heard are usually more at the city level. Some very localized results, but the problems are more.
Yeah.
Than that.
Yeah, there are definitely examples of municipalities and counties that are really taking creative approaches to improving water quality. For example, here in Polk County, which is where Des Moines is in Iowa, they have taken on a really innovative approach to installing bioreactors and saturated buffers. And that is something that hopefully could be replicated in other areas across the state. But.
Thanks. I'll hand it over to Lisa for this one. We've got a lot of questions coming in. Sorry, I'm trying to sort through them all. Somebody asked Lisa, they said, it seems that most of the sites are not traditional beach or swim areas. Is that correct? And are these mainly large river sites that you're monitoring?
I'm sorry, say the last part of that.
They said it looks like you're not monitoring some of the traditional beach and swim areas. Are you mainly focusing on large river sites?
We don't have any swim areas. So with the thing with Swim Guide is they refer to any site that you're collecting at as a beach. So we're still listed under the beaches for Swim Guide. Now, you're right, we're not going to there. I mean, there are private clubs that there's one private club on an island in the Potomac that we collect from, but we are going to places where people are interacting with the water. As I said, like a marina, a place that people will be out. We also have lots of, rowers on this river too, from all the different high schools and universities. So you're right, it's not right on the beach area, if that's what you mean, but these are places that have a significance because of people coming into contact. They could be fishing, that's another thing, or just recreating in some way, but not typically swimming areas.
Thanks. Somebody asked if, well, they're wondering if either of you have used, I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly, coli alert kits for community scientists with QA QC. So that's kind of one part of the question, asking if you've used the coli alert kits. They're also wondering, Lisa, if your lab is state or if it has to be state or EPA certified in order for the data to be accepted or used.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I don't. No, you're good.
Okay, so yes, with the IDEX, we use ColiAlert and we also use InterAlert. InterAlert we need to use with brackish water, and although it's on port tobacco is only about 5 parts per thousand, it's enough that we need to use the InterAlert. So we use both of those. We have 2 different incubators because those samples have to be incubated at different temperatures. ColiAlert's 35 and the InterAlert is at 41. And we have been approved. I mentioned writing up the manual and everything. We're inspected each year. They look at our data, they look at our methods, they come aboard the ship, and we are certified as a Tier 3 lab, which means that the data that we collect can be used in a court if it has to be. And that's the highest tier for this.
Great. Going back to Alicia for a minute, somebody asked if Iowa has an estimate of a percentage of failing septic systems, and you showed that great map with the CAFOs around the state, and they're wondering if there's any sort of map or database out there of locations and concentrations of failing septic systems.
You know, I'm not sure on that one. I'm not going to try to pretend that I know, but so I would think if there was something out there like that, that the DNR would have a data set, but I haven't looked at that myself. So.
Yeah, I'm not able to offer much help on that either, aside from maybe the county health departments and Iowa Department of Public Health might have something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody also asked for Alicia. Let me find it again real quick. They're asking if a beach advisory or swim advisory results in a closure of the beach, or is swimming still allowed, but it's swim at your own risk?
Yeah, it's swim at your own risk. They post a sign that says warning, but the beaches are not closed, and the signs are pretty small and not very eye-catching, which is, we definitely think, an issue. Also that they're only in English. There's no Spanish translating services for any of those health warnings. So yeah, we think that that's an issue that really could be improved as far as the warning system.
That's a great point. Lisa, another one for you. Somebody asked, is the DC area doing any significant effort? And you kind of mentioned this a little bit in your presentation, so maybe just expand upon it a little bit more. But is the DC area doing any significant effort to replace the combined sewer stormwater systems, aside from just the land-based like green infrastructure practices?
Right. So we have policies out now that are basically saying that by the year, sorry, I don't have all the paper in front of me, 2025, that the city of Alexandria will have fixed those pipes, essentially. So we have right now about 12 active legal Clean Water Act cases on the docket. But that's an example of the kind of thing that we can do with this data. So yeah, so that green infrastructure's one piece of the one act that DC was doing, but this is, you know, fixing tunnels, pipes, and continuing to monitor, continuing to collect the data is very important to be able to make these kinds of changes. And we have to stop that kind of polluter.
Great answer. We're at the hour. There's just one last, well, there's a couple other questions we haven't gotten to, but ones should be pretty quick and straightforward. Lisa, somebody's asking, how deep do you guys collect your water samples from when you're doing this monitoring?
Yeah, so I guess you could consider it surface, but it's down to about 6 inches is how we collect our samples.
Awesome, that was an easy one. All right, so I want to be respectful of your guys' time and also the people in our audience. There are a few questions we didn't have time to get to. If you're out there and your question wasn't answered and you want to follow up, you can send us an email at sos@iwla.org, and I can forward it on to Alicia and Lisa. Otherwise, just a reminder that the webinar was recorded today, and we'll be sending a link to the YouTube video up in the next day or two to everyone who's registered for this webinar. So just keep an eye on your inbox for that. And like I said, any other follow-ups, just send over to sos@iwla.org, and we can put you in touch with Lisa or Alicia, or send you any relevant links or whatever you may need. So just want to thank you guys all for joining us today, and especially thank you to Alicia and Lisa for you guys' great presentations. I found them really insightful and engaging, and I learned some new stuff today. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. All right. Hope everyone enjoys the second half of your week, and I'm going to close this out now. Bye-bye.